buy land, they say. They're not going to make any more of it. Hi, my name is Oagatsa Alfred. I am the CEO and founder of Lesedi Lebone Property Developers. We are a company that deals with real estate. We are property developers. We are interior designers. We are property valuers. We are everything property, a one-stop shop, all things property. Today, we're going to talk about an interesting topic. We're going to talk about land acquisition. This would come in handy for people who want to invest in property and people who want to become developers. So, today, I would like us to primarily focus on tribal land. Let's just have a background about the history of land in Botswana. Botswana has 3 land tenures. Those 3 land tenures are freehold property, tribal land, and state land. So one would ask, how much of Botswana in terms of percentages is tribal land? Tribal land is 71% of Botswana, and freehold is only 3%, and state land is 26%. That makes 100 for the whole country. Let's now elaborate on each one of them and what they mean. Freehold land is owned by a specific person. It has no time limitation. So indefinitely that person owns that land and they have full rights over the property. State land is land that is owned and governed by the state. That means that the state regulates, allocates the land and manages the use of the land. And usually you'd get a title deed with a 99-year ownership plan. People would ask, what does the 99-year plan involve? What is it about? And essentially, they mean you own the land for 99 years. It is unclear and it's not defined as to what happens after 99 years. They are not very clear about what's the process of renewing the 99 years, which is something that I feel our government and our policymakers have to work on. The last one, which is what I'm primarily going to focus on in this segment, is the tribal land. So tribal land is communal land, land owned by communities. In the past, tribal land was managed by dikhosi, chiefs. And if you talk to an older generation, my son calls them fossils. If you talk to an older generation, they will tell you that land allocation back then was predominantly about a chief. You would just have to bring in a bottle of their favorite brandy or something that they liked, alcoholic, a whiskey, and you'd get allocated, and they would just be like, okay, just keep walking until I stop or whatever. And they would pick up a drink and keep going. Okay, stop. So depending on the kind of bottle you brought to the show, you would get more land. But now, tribal land is regulated by land boards. So it's gotten a bit more structured properly. Gosh, I wish I was there when land was worth a whiskey bottle. But we find ourselves here. So that was that about the history of land in Botswana and land acquisition. To move on, we're going to talk about the policies that regulate land and land allocation. Well, because I said we're going to primarily focus on the Tribal Land Act, I would like us to talk about the Tribal Land Act of 1968, which was implemented in 1972. So with that act, you could not sell land, but you could sell the developments. You were issued a certificate as proof of land rights, and above and beyond that, you were not allowed to sell that without it being properly developed. So the next act which came into play is the Tribal Land Act of 2018. It was implemented in 2022, which is just yesterday. The difference between the first Tribal Land Act, which is the one for 1968, and the current Tribal Land Act of 2018 is that with the current one, land is registerable without it being developed, which means you can sell your land. The difference also is that there is transfer duty now for tribal land, and in the past, with the Tribal Act of 1968, there was no transfer duty. So we see that selling land now is being recognized by the government, and it's not much of a hassle, and you're not doing anything to develop it before you lease it to somebody else, sell it to somebody else. And another thing about it is that when you're now allocated the land, it comes as a lease, which is registerable at the deeds office. I know this is getting a bit like a classroom, a little bit boring, but I promise you there is a reason why we're going to the history. Let me tell you, when you get yourself into something, you need to understand fully what it is. You cannot just fall hook, line, and sinker like you're in love in an investment. So, what governs land and land acquisition? There obviously have to be some regulations with anything in life, even a household, anything that includes human beings needs some sort of regulation. Even in households, like I was saying, you will not have a regulation, because if you don't do that, if you don't have those in place, you will find your child eating spaghetti out of a champagne glass, and everybody will be doing whatever they want. So human nature, we need some sort of order. There are policies in place and regulations in place that govern land acquisition. These policies are made by policymakers, and I have a little bit of a bone to pick with policymakers who currently made some of the acts. For property developers, we pay transfer duty as if we bought a house of the value that we've built. You buy a plot. After you buy a plot, you build on it. After you build on it, you are required to pay transfer duty as if you are buying that house from the person you bought the plot from with the price. Let me give an example just so you get it. You buy the plot for 500,000. You build a house that's worth 1.8 million. Then you sell it to somebody else who buys it for 1.8 million. The policy right now is that you are going to be charged transfer duty as if you bought a house worth 1.8 million from the original plot owner. I think what should be done is we should just start validating that people are selling plots. Yes, it's called a development agreement, but at the end of the day, why am I not charged for the amount of money that I bought the plot from? I had a chance to talk with one of the people who was present when the policy was being made, and it made me aware that there wasn't equal representation of people who this really affects. We cannot have a policy that is made up of less people than people who are going to be directly affected by the policy. There was no representation of property developers. There might have been representations from people from the estate profession, but I don't think they covered the property developer. So in essence, I think there is still room for improvement in terms of the policies that we have. And really from the general Botswana should be encouraged to attend things such as the housing pitso. I personally went there and attended, and I noticed that people who were there present were mostly from the ministry, and the public was barely there. It was people who were presenting and people who just wanted a break from work and showed up to the seminar. But this information was important to the people who are actually going to consume the products and who really stand to benefit from these policies. It is their chance every pitso to be able to speak out and be heard. For example, in Botswana, BHC, Botswana Housing Corporation, gets allocated free land to develop. Their mandate is to provide lower prices to the market for our ability for them to purchase, right? I feel the same should be extended to private developers such that we are able to compete directly with BHC. Because if you look at it, the price of land that we buy and them getting the land for somewhat for free puts them in a better position than us in terms of pricing. So we should also be eligible to be given property and for us to service it ourselves and for us to be able to provide products that are affordable to the market rather than competing with a giant that still gets things for free or easier than we are able to. So that's that about policies. We need more representation of people on the market, more people, more customers, so that we are able to understand and make decisions for ourselves. And really, I urge everyone to take interest in land ownership, because land is the best investment that you could ever make. Wealth, mostly in the world, comes from owning land. And if you're not interested in land ownership, I really don't know what you'd possibly be interested in, because shelter is a basic need. And as you grow older, it's your responsibility to provide that shelter to younger people. And if you pass on, the best asset you could possibly leave people you've left behind and people you're responsible for taking care of is land. Land appreciates. If I can tell you, when I started developing, which is 12, 13 years ago, over a decade, we used to buy plots for around 60,000 to 100,000 in Block 10. And right now, plots of a smaller size than those we bought for 100,000 are now costing 450,000. This is to show that the value of land really accumulates with time. There are people who've always been skeptical when land moved to prices of 300,000. They were like, oh, this is so expensive. There's no way. The market is going to crash and all of that. But guess what? Now land and housing is even more expensive than it was when the opportunity for those people to buy was there. A big part of it is that people don't take time on social media, internet, Google, to actually learn about things that will help them propel their lives. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with play. Play is also important, but there needs to be some sort of balance between play and work. You cannot just watch content constantly about people dancing or jokes without including some things that are supposed to build you as a person. The information is out there. People are just lazy to not go after that information and look for it. And guess who gets affected in the end? You as an individual. So it's your choice really to pick what kind of life you want to be. What I'm here to do is just give you the options. Play all the time, work and play, or work. It's your choice. And in the end, the consequence of the actions that you take will affect only you. So this is essentially to help you. So with consultancy, I also help you understand where land acquisition is going and the past of land acquisition and how you could possibly acquire land without a hassle. Something that I have had to learn with experience, and I don't want everybody to keep going through the same problems that I went through. It takes a toll on your body. When there's somebody who's already done that, why not just talk to them for a small fee? And they could guide you on the pitfalls to avoid. Nonetheless, this is not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about policies now and the importance of policies. Policies are important in that they govern how land is managed, how land is used. They provide us with proper city planning. Imagine if everybody just did their own thing. Ka Setswana we say, "Kwa ga mapereko." Imagine if that was the case. It would be a mess. So land policies and regulations help with creating order. It's very important for us to understand what policies help us with, because once we understand the importance of policies, then we will be more active into making sure that those policies are the right fit and the right guide for us to take. Land policies also help to reduce conflict. If I can tell you, one of the biggest fights that the courts have to deal with is problems of land and land ownership. The borehole was ours. The borehole was this. There's a lot. The inheritance, the plot. We want it to be divided and whatnot. So if we have policies in place and we contribute, the problem with most people in societies is they feel like lawmaking is something for other people. They distance themselves from choosing to participate in the decisions that ultimately affect their lives. So policies are important in that they hold everything together.